Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, 3 chances to win fantabulous prizes during our Good News giveaway, our Real Deal giveaway, and our brand new Golden Age of America contest. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
This weekend, I couldn't help but think about the movie Con Air. I love the movie Con Air. I think it is Nick Cage at his absolute hammy best. I think it is one of the most ridiculous, over-the-top Jerry Bruckheimer action movies I've ever seen. Crashing into the Hard Rock Hotel guitar, landing on the Vegas Strip or wherever it was that thing actually landed, because I think they were confusing downtown Vegas with the actual Strip at certain points. The Cyrus the Virus, Johnny 23. That movie's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you haven't seen the movie, rent it for tonight, stream it for tonight. But here's what it's about. Nicolas Cage is a former Army Ranger who went to jail for defending his wife in a bar fight and killing a guy. He's coming home after being paroled from prison, and he's got a friend on the plane who's got the diabetes. And what happens is he's on a plane with every single psycho serial killer in the universe on one plane, and what happens is the psychos take over the plane, and I'm not going to ruin the rest for you with the 30-year-old spoilers. So, great movie, fun movie, lots of fun. But we saw the real-life version of that this weekend. What happens? Donald Trump invoked an act from 1798. It was the Aliens Enemies Act of 1798 in an effort to detain and deport all members of the Tren de Aragua gang who are in the U.S. illegally. The White House released a statement on the presidential action, which reads, "I find and declare that TDA is perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the territory of the United States. TDA is undertaking hostile actions and conducting irregular warfare against the territory of the United States, both directly and at the direction, clandestine or otherwise, of the Maduro regime in Venezuela. I make these findings using the full extent of my authority to conduct the nation's foreign affairs under the Constitution." The release added, "Based on these findings and the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I proclaim that all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA, who are within the United States and are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the United States, are liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. I further find and declare that all such members of TDA are, by virtue of their membership in that organization, chargeable with actual hostility against the United States and are therefore ineligible of the benefits of 50 U.S.C. 221. I find and declare that all such members of TDA are a danger to the public peace or safety of the United States." So, let's start with this for a second, because there's some legalese we need to get into here. First of all, they're illegally in the U.S. Can we start with that? He said specifically, anybody who's not naturalized, anybody who's not a citizen, anybody who's not a legal green card holder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He made that very, very clear. Right off the bat, they committed the crime of being illegal immigrants. You want to get into whether or not they're gang members? Fine, but they already committed a crime. Let's start there. I do love that Democrats love resurrecting old laws when they want to use them, but then getting mad at Donald Trump when he does the exact same thing. Do you remember a guy? You might remember him. He became governor of Washington named Bob Ferguson. You might remember him, but do you remember what he did in order to ban Facebook political ads here in Washington? He pulled up some law from the 1970s because he didn't want that there. He didn't want the Facebook advertising in political campaigns. Now, people used it and found loopholes around it. Is it an issue ad? Is it a personal campaign? What's the story? Et cetera, et cetera. But he did the exact same thing, and Democrats do this all the time. They don't like that Donald Trump is doing the exact same thing to them. And I do love when Tom Homan was asked about using an old law. Tom Homan had the perfect response. I can just imagine the Thug Life sunglasses coming down on him and the music playing at the end of this. In fact, I probably should have asked Mike to add that to this.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? It's not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more times do you plan on...
And then he walks away. Yeah, he's 100% right. This is within the law. Now, one activist judge says, no, turn the plane around and bring them back. But the Trump administration knows they're going to get challenged on this stuff. One, they were already gone. Two, they were already over international waters. Three, we know this thing is going to get overturned on appeal. You will get into the legalese of whether or not they could do that. Fine, but the Trump administration has gotten pretty good at circumventing these leftist judges that think they have the rule of law to wield as an attack hammer, but actually don't have the law to back them up. They just say, I'm a judge, I get to do what I want, which is exactly what happened here. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg issued the order on Saturday night demanding to bring back the gang members, citing exigent circumstances. Just hours before Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act. Boasberg also called for a hearing to address the lawsuit's broader efforts to protect other illegal immigrants who may be targeted under Trump's invocation of the act, according to Politico. The lawyers representing the 5 suspected TDA members suggested that Trump invoking the act could put countless Venezuelans at imminent risk of deportation without any hearing or meaningful review. Well, did it? I'm just trying to understand that. It's a law that exists. Then you want to redo the law, you fight it at the congressional level. Let's not forget that Trump has already declared TDA, as well as other gangs and cartel organizations, as terrorist organizations by the United States. And mind you, El Salvador took in a whole bunch of these guys. El Salvador said, sure, we take them. Donald Trump even thanked El Salvador for taking them. He said, thank you, El Salvador, and in particular, the president, for your understanding of this horrible situation, which was allowed to happen to the United States because of incompetent Democrat leadership. We will not forget. Trump also referred to the apprehended aliens as the monsters sent into our country by crooked Joe Biden and radical left Democrats. A senior Trump administration official confirmed to Fox News that a total of 261 illegal aliens were deported to El Salvador yesterday. 137 via the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. 101 were Venezuelans who were removed via Title VIII. 21 were Salvadoran MS-13 gang members, and 2 were MS-13 ringleaders and special cases for El Salvador, according to the official. The rap sheets for those removed included kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, aggravated assault, prostitution, robbery, aggravated assault of a police officer. Why would you want to keep these guys in the U.S. aside from a radical agenda to sow chaos? Let me ask this for the Democrats, because maybe this is why you guys are sinking in the polls. Can you please make to me the case for keeping the gang members in the U.S.? Make the case for me, really. What benefit do they have for society? You just want to see Donald Trump lose right now. You think the gang members are going to the polling locations and voting for Democrats? I bet you the gang members, even though some of them may be registered to vote because we know of some of the problems we have in our voting system, I bet you even though some of them are registered to vote, they ain't returning those ballots because they don't care about that. You know, the Democrats keep calling Donald Trump, they keep calling him chaotic, chaos. You notice they keep using that word? Whoever their political consultant is a moron. And tried to prep in advance. Mike knows this. When I try to prep for the show at night in the Trump administration, it is all irrelevant by the morning. I have to start my prep all over again because he moves so quickly. Whatever stories I had at night are usually no longer relevant by the next day, and we try to stay as current as possible. So, when you're trying to stay as current as possible, you got to make sure you're up on the latest news. You got to make sure you're up on the latest things. And whoever wrote this playbook for the Democrats about calling Donald Trump's administration chaos was basing that on the first Trump administration. Look, we liked the first Trump administration, and a lot of good came out of the first Trump administration, but it was chaotic. It seemed like it was just a tornado going a million miles an hour, and sometimes the bus would drop in the right place. That's what it seemed like. But this Trump administration is organized. It's on a mission. It knows exactly where it wants to go and how to get there. So the Democrats base their advertising on the Trump administration of Trump administration 1. And it is completely out of date. Watch, they keep using the word chaos, even locally. Nick Brown, Bob Ferguson, Bruce Harrell, they all use the word chaos and chaotic all the time, and it just ain't working. Because once again, when you're doing these 80-20 issues, like the majority of Americans want the gang members deported, the left doesn't know how to keep up with any of this. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said it perfectly in the press briefing room this morning.
I would remind everybody in this room that Tren de Aragua is a foreign terrorist organization operating within the United States of America because the previous administration allowed them to invade our country. These are monsters who tortured, raped, and murdered a 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungre. They murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. They led a multi-state sex trafficking operation involving smuggling women into the United States, holding them in stash houses in Louisiana, Florida, New Jersey, Texas, and Virginia, and forcing them into prostitution. They kidnapped and murdered a 33-year-old woman in Texas. They sexually and physically assaulted a woman and her daughter in Wisconsin. They conducted a mass shooting in Illinois. They peddled untraceable ghost guns across New York City, took over an Aurora, Colorado apartment complex where they kidnapped and tortured victims. And by the way, many of you in the mainstream media said that didn't happen. It turned out that it did. And because of the effective immigration policies of this administration, those foreign terrorists were detained and they are no longer operating on American soil, and we have President Trump to thank for that.
I don't understand the Democrats' thinking, by the way. So first of all, you can't defend keeping the illegal immigrants in the country. You can't defend keeping the gang members in the country. But aren't the Democrats the ones who are always saying America's so racist, it hates brown people, or whatever other nonsense they come up with, and then they want to keep them in the country? The Democrats' message is falling so flat. And that's why their approval rankings are going through the floor, and Donald Trump's are actually on the increase. I said this last week. The Democrats, even though it'll be short-lived, should be attacking Donald Trump on the economy, because it takes a while to stop that freight train and get it going in another direction. That's what they should be doing. They'll have egg on their face later, but for the short term, they may get some gains, even though egg prices are down, even though gas prices are down. But instead of doing that, what are they doing? Chaos, chaos, chaos. How dare you deport the illegal immigrants when it's an 80-20 issue? Why can't we have boys and girls sports? 80-20 issue. Why are we deporting the terrorist from Columbia University? 80-20 issue. Which is why, when I saw this poll this weekend, I checked it. I saw it over on Fox News, but it's not their poll. And I said, wait. Hang on. Is this something that everybody else is reporting also? This is an NBC poll being reported by CNN. Neither of them are in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. Here's what it is.
I'm a big fan of the oldies, and when it comes to the feelings that Americans, voters at large, and Democrats have, I can't help but think of Chubby Checker. Why is that? Because the question is, how low can you go? Voters' views of Democrats in Congress, the lowest ever approval ratings on record per Quinnipiac University. Look at this. Approve 21% among all voters. Look at the disapprove level. Holy Toledo, 68% of all voters disapprove of how Democrats are doing in Congress. Now, you might think that is low, and this is the lowest number on your screen here, down at 21%. But I want to bring you over here to how Democratic voters feel, because this is truly unbelievable. Amongst their own party, how do Democratic representative senators, how are they viewed? Get this, the plurality disapprove at 49%. More Democrats disapprove of the job that their party is doing in Congress than approve. Get this, only 40% approve. These are truly horrific numbers. They're in the trash bin of history. That is how low these approval ratings are. When you can't even get plurality approval among your own party, you know you're doing something wrong in the eyes of the
Donald Trump has managed to put the Democrats on the wrong side of every single issue, and they don't know what to do with themselves. Here they are defending terrorists. Here they are defending gang members. Here they are defending sending men into women's sports, sending men into women's locker rooms. Here they are defending failed educational policy like DEI and CRT, and the majority of Americans don't agree with them. Now, I want you to take this poll with a little bit of salt, as excited as you are right now. Number one, polls change, but here's number two. Polls on Democrats, polls on Congress usually don't account for the specific senator or the specific congressperson. So people will say, I hate Congress, but I like my congressman. I hate the Senate, but I like my senator. This is something to take with a big grain of salt. However, the Democrats, if they ignore this, they're dooming themselves. This is a messaging issue. If I asked anybody out there right now, and in fact, if you can come up with the answer to this, give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. What do the Democrats stand for right now? What does the Democratic Party stand for right now? I bet you a lot of you will give me smart aleck remarks. I get that, and you're welcome to do that at 206-421-5757. But you can't tell me what messaging they're actually on the side of. They lost the showdown over the continuing resolution. They lost the showdown with Donald Trump. They've been losing. They've been racking up losses nonstop, and they don't know how to get back on message. I don't want to give them ideas. I hope they continue doing this. But at the same time, has the Democrat Party completely lost its way where it's just being run by the far left activists? Case in point, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer has a book tour that you may have heard from KVI News at the top of the hour. A book which I have not read, nor do I plan on reading, about anti-Semitism. Really, Chucky? You told the people over at Columbia University to keep their heads down while all the terrorist supporters were taking over your campus. I don't want to hear this. This is an attempt for him to restore his faith with the Jewish community because he's got an election coming up. That's what this book is about. And everybody goes, yeah, dude, you bailed on us when we needed you. But do you know why Chuck Schumer canceled his book tour? Because he's worried about the far left activists showing up and protesting him at every single stop he goes to. And it won't just be about Israel. It'll be about immigration. It'll be about not taking on the Trump administration. It'll be about the losses he is racking up. He is afraid of his own constituents. He is afraid of his own party because he's not just going to be getting it from the left. He's also going to be getting it from the right. He is afraid. We have sent Chuck Schumer into hiding from his own constituents, from his own party. That is how successful this administration has become. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. We will get to your calls, but also another hatchet attack in a Seattle homeless shelter. We'll give you the details and all the gory stuff when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. By the way, I do love the people texting in quotes from Con Air. TJ wrote, "What are you looking at?" when Nick Cage goes, "Ugly all day." Classic, as TJ says. My personal favorite quote is, "Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?" That's my favorite one from Con Air. If you have a favorite Con Air quote, feel free to text it in at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I saw a video pop up on my social media feed, and I thought it was from Israel. Israel last week had Jewish Halloween, otherwise known as Purim, where everybody's running around in costumes. And there's a dude in a full Spider-Man costume on top of a junction box doing the, that whole thing. I can't make the sound effect, though. That thing. So what happens? I realize that's not Israel. That's not a New York neighborhood. That's Rainier Beach, where a dude dressed as Spider-Man on a regular day of the week, I guess it's just a day ending in Y because it's Seattle, is standing on top of an electrical junction box that looks like it controls streetlights, just being Spider-Man. Looks like he's living his best life, by the way. Looks more like a Miles Morales Spider-Man because he's wearing sneakers. But either who, I'm not judging what kind of Spider-Man it is. It's just, this is Seattle. And then I see this other news report, and I go, oh, yeah, it's Seattle. I see that the Seattle Police Scanner Twitter account had a hatchet attack, and it gave the address of the hatchet attack. And I'm like, that address sounds really, really familiar. Oh, right. It's a notorious homeless shelter here in Seattle. According to Como News, a 50-year-old man was arrested for felony assault after allegedly attacking a 34-year-old victim with a hatchet in Seattle's First Hill neighborhood Sunday afternoon. Officers respond to a 911 call in the 900 block of Union Street at 2:39 p.m., where they found the victim suffering from severe neck laceration. Seattle Fire Department provided medical treatment, transported the victim to Harborview Medical Center in serious condition with life-threatening injuries. Police located the suspect in his 10th floor city-funded apartment. Oh, I'm sorry, am I not supposed to say that? His 10th floor apartment, and arrested him without incident. A search warrant was obtained for the residence, where officers found the weapon under a mattress in a living room. The knife, I thought it was a hatchet. Oh, hatchet? Yeah, one of the best scenes in The Walking Dead. The knife was described as approximately 12 inches long with a 7-inch blade. According to a police report, the suspect was booked into King County Jail for first-degree assault. Now, I saw this report from a lot of outlets, and they just grabbed what was on the Seattle Police Blotter. And the Seattle Police Blotter usually is very, very light on details. Guys, one Google search. One Google search. And you would have known what is at this location. How many attacks have we covered at this place? How many assaults? How many crazy things have we covered at this specific location? Yeah, this is what happens when you get low barrier housing, which means you can bring in your weapons, you can bring in your drugs, you can bring in whatever you want. Does this surprise anybody? Of course not. Well, while Seattle officials say, oh, things are getting so much better around here, this from Cairo 7, Seattle police are looking for a suspect or suspects who used a Seattle Fire Department vehicle to crash into Seattle Fire Department's joint training facility to burglarize it. So we're not just stealing cars anymore and crashing them into pot shops. No, my friends. We are stealing fire department vehicles and crashing them into the fire department to steal needles? Wait, I thought needle exchanges work. On March 16th, a captain with the Seattle Fire Department called Seattle police to report an overnight burglary. When the captain arrived at the training facility, he saw that both front gates had been destroyed and that a Seattle Fire Department pickup truck was used to break them down. He also found a hole that had been cut into the chain link portion of the main gate to access the facility. The truck's ignition appeared damaged, and the driver's side window was shattered. It appears the suspect or suspects who broke into the 3 trailers on the property and an axe, oh, here we go again, a hatchet, was found on the ground near the engine bay. It's unclear what items have been stolen, and Seattle Fire will take full inventory of the facility. They have not yet released the suspect information. I guess it's a drug addict looking for medical supplies. That's just a guess. Call me crazy, but that's what my guess is. So now we've upgraded to stealing fire department vehicles. This is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Yeah, I told you the criminals won't get the memo that police were now pursuing stolen cars again. At this point, does it really matter? They steal the car, they use it as a battering ram, they take what they want, and then they leave. We heard about the pot shop where now the building might be condemned. They hit it so hard with a stolen car. So whenever your officials in office say, oh, things are getting better around here, you go, when was the last time a Seattle Fire Department vehicle was stolen? Because don't forget, over the summer, they were setting fires intentionally to try and lure in fire department vehicles so they could steal them. And there were 2 attempted thefts of fire trucks, is how crazy this has gotten around here. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up, Ari, is I want to give you and your listeners some breaking news of some outrageous progressive agitation. First, according to Signals Intelligence, from March 31 to April 4th, there will be a Gaza Unbreakable Week of Rage. And
Hang on. I got to stop you for a second there, Joe. I got to stop you for a second. I'm just going to tell you why I'm laughing. A friend of mine made a calendar one time of the Gaza people and the calendars they would make, right? And it said, Day of Rage, Day of Rage, Day of Rage, Taco Tuesday, Day of Rage, I'm envisioning that thing in my mind. And at the very end, it said Day of Rage, Day of Rage, Day of Rage, Halloween, Day of Rage. That's just why I'm laughing. I'm sorry. It's very serious news. Continue.
Yes, the terrorists, such as Super UW, a group that has been allowed back on the UW campus and even allowed to table against recommendations, is working with this Students for Palestine movement. They say they will reaffirm to continue to challenge university admin, resist state suppression, and counter right-wing attacks while doing critical blows to the Zionist machine, and reassert that the student movement is also unbreakable.
Well, I'll say this. My guess is, you know what, Joe? Let them have their protest because we'll get lots of video of it and we'll send it to ICE. What do you think?
I think we should also send it to a Department of Education and to Doge. And if the UW police are going to stand there and do nothing, if the regents are going to appease terrorists, then maybe it's time and the National Guard's going to be ordered to stand down, then maybe it's time that the UW was taken over by the federal government and we put in a military governor and we clean up this mess, because our tax dollars are paying billions of dollars for this stuff. And Jews and Muslims and Christians and people of no religion have a right to go to that school and feel safe.
Yeah.
And this group is taking it too far.
I'll tell you something. If they keep going this way, Joe, they're going to end up like Evergreen State University, which has no students anymore.
I think it would be very tragic for the University of Washington. There's some great alumni who've gone there, like Heidi Wills. I will admit the name, and Edgar Brooke, a great open government philosopher. I will spare your listeners the names of politicians that come to mind because, frankly, they all need to speak up against this and put a stop to it.
I agree, and we should be asking our politicians why they aren't saying anything about it. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Trump is on his way. Well, not him personally, but him and Elon Musk are working to save those astronauts in the International Space Station. Meanwhile, a former astronaut is clowning himself by talking about how bad Elon Musk is. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, I am smiling if you're watching us over on our live stream because we are in the golden age of America, my friends. Now, some of you may have heard the kickoff of our new contest that we're having on the show with the golden age of America with your shot at over 2,000.
The golden age of America is upon us.
Exactly. Now, we are giving away $2,000 every single weekday. However, my friends, there are specific rules to this contest. And when we are giving away that money is during the 4 o'clock hour. So if you are calling in right now, you are not going to get to win. You are exactly. You are just wasting your time right now. At the top of the 4 o'clock hour, we give out.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
At the top of the 4 o'clock hour, we give out a keyword. You are then to text the keyword in, not call. If you call, Mike's just going to get mad. Don't call. You call to discuss politics. And then we have to block the phone lines so people can't call to discuss politics.
Yeah, nobody's getting in. I don't want to talk to any of you people right now.
So you text the word during the 4 o'clock hour, which I will give you during the 4 o'clock hour. You do not give us the word that John gave you this morning or whatever word you think you heard this morning. We will give you the rules. We will give you the word at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. For now, just sit back, relax, enjoy the show. At the top of the 4 o'clock hour, we will give you the word so you can be entered to win the $2,000 in our Trump's Golden Age of America contest that we're having right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Cool?
The legend begins right here.
Exactly right. Speaking of legends,
But we're going to usher in a new golden age of American success for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
Oh, yeah.
But only if you text in the keyword at the right time. Otherwise, no golden age of America for any of you. It's coming up at 4 o'clock. All right, rant finished. Good. Moving on. So, over the weekend, one of the SpaceX capsules shot into orbit, docked with the International Space Station, and is there to rescue the astronauts. Now, you say, why aren't they home yet? Well, you got to make sure that a whole bunch of things are in place, like the heat shield. Remember what happened to the Space Shuttle Columbia? You got to make sure that it performs all its checks. You got to transfer everything over in the International Space Station to the new crew. We got a lot to do. But Elon Musk is halfway, and Donald Trump is halfway to saving the astronauts that were stranded there by Joe Biden when the Boeing space capsule failed, and it couldn't bring them back. So now, Elon Musk is on his way to saving the astronauts, and as we found out, these astronauts had the opportunity to come back, and Joe Biden didn't want to give Elon Musk the win. He didn't want to give Donald Trump the win, so he stranded 2 astronauts in the International Space Station for, what is it, 9 months? 9 months he has left them up there for. Senator Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona, the spaceman as we call him. We usually liked him because he's more of a blue dog Democrat, a more common sense Democrat. You know what he did over the weekend? He sold his Tesla to protest Elon Musk and instead bought a Chevy Tahoe. So I went to the Chevy website and I looked up the cars they have, and they have a lot of EVs. The Tahoe is not an EV. So Donald Trump has driven the lefties so crazy that they are trading in their electric vehicles for gas-guzzling Chevys. Let me just make sure I got that right. On top of that, he's a spaceman. He's the spaceman. He was an astronaut. Shouldn't he want to see those astronauts come home? I remember that Apollo 13 movie. Everybody's working together to bring home the other astronauts. I guess that's all out the window right now. Shouldn't you want to see them come back? No, I'm sorry, dude. Your bias is showing. You should say I may disagree with Donald Trump and Elon Musk on a whole lot of issues, but they're saving my fellow spacemen. They're saving my fellow astronauts. But no, instead you own yourself. He got ripped for this on social media. Aside from getting rid of the EV that he's oh so virtue signaling about, now trading it in for a Chevy Tahoe. Yeah, I don't think that's going to sell as many Tahoes as Donald Trump was selling Teslas the other day. By the way, was it actually Joe Biden Who stranded the astronauts up there? Or was it just somebody in his administration? There's a whole bunch of discussion about the auto pen feature. The auto pen? Yes. So Joe Biden apparently wasn't actually signing documents. You see Donald Trump. Donald Trump brings out the big Sharpie and signs it in front of everybody and does big signing ceremonies. And occasionally Joe Biden would do it. But apparently, with a whole bunch of stuff, he was just auto penning his signature. You know, my son the other day needed my permission for something, and he brings me, so sweet, so innocent. He brings me this electronic thing. He goes, Dad, I need your signature. But it wasn't asking for a signature. I just had to type my name into it. He could have done it too. But he's an honest kid, and he brought me the phone to enter my name so that I'd be signing off on this thing. Even my son knows not to use the auto pen feature. President Donald Trump said early Monday that he was voiding all the last-minute pardons under former President Joe Biden that he made using the auto pen. He said on Truth Social the pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. Yeah, by the way, I think he's spot on about this. How do we know who actually signed these? As I've discussed before, you cannot find a theme in the Biden administration. It just seemed like everybody was running their own agenda, even when they were in conflict with each other. The amazing thing about the Trump administration, there's a lot of amazing things, but the thing I find most amazing about it, you have a cabinet of alphas. These are all alphas, not alpha males. Alphas, alpha women, alpha males. And if they wanted to, they could be running their own policy. They're not. They're doing it in concert with the president. And in addition to that, they're always giving him all the credit for it. These are people who are truly working for the administration, truly working for the president, and truly working for the American people. And they're being humble about it, too. They're not saying, look what I did. I'm about to solve peace in the Middle East. Look what I did. I'm about to solve peace with Ukraine. That's not what they're doing. But they're all working towards one message. They're all working towards the president's agenda. You couldn't say that under the Biden administration. Under the Biden administration, I don't know what they were working towards, but it wasn't anything good for the American people. Everybody was just carrying out their own virtue signaling nonsense, and the auto pen is how they got it done. Did Joe Biden actually know what he was signing? And are these things now all void because they weren't actually signed by Joe Biden? Instead, they were signed by the auto pen. Lots of legal questions. We're going to have to reach out to some of our legal experts, get them on the show to discuss. When we come back, our friend Batya Unger Sargon absolutely killed it on Bill Maher this weekend. We'll tell you what the topic was and how Don Lemon actually lost his cool and blew it on Bill Maher. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. former CNN anchor Don Lemon. Don Lemon?
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
Don Lemon was apparently on Bill Maher's Club Random. And while he was on that, Bill Maher was challenging him because Don Lemon was saying, well, if you vote for Republicans, you ain't black.
It's the same thing that when I see not all black Republicans, but I see a black MAGA person who is carrying Donald Trump's water and they know that he's lying. It is the shortest line to the front. Because if you're black and you're whatever, you're just in line with a bunch of other Democrats that are doing the same thing that you're doing. But if you become a black MAGA person, it's like, whoa, let's book this person, let's put him on television.
So you don't think you can be a sincere black MAGA person?
No, I just said, I don't think that, I just said, I think there can be sincere Republicans.
But you can't be a sincere black Republican?
I don't think that you can be a rational MAGA, be black and be a rational MAGA person. I think you can be black and be a Republican.
I think they would find that very insulting.
Well, I mean, the truth is often insulting.
I think we should get Byron Donalds back on the show and ask him what he thinks about something like that. In fact, I'm going to reach out to him after the show today. Oh, Don Lemon wasn't done yet with his insane racist statements.
Let me ask you your opinion on this. Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary show. They did one thing, they did a sketch where Tom Hanks puts on a MAGA hat, so he's a Trumper, and then Keenan comes over to shake his hand, and he won't shake his hand.
Yeah.
And I said this on Fareed's show the other day. I found that that's so old. You know, I didn't vote for him. I get all the bad things about that administration, but if you think they don't shake black people's hands, it's just you're wrong. That's not who they are. Matt Gaetz shakes black people's hands. You know, Kid Rock will shake your hand. It's just not helpful to like think that half the country that's where they are. That's your
still you're a comedian, you know, it's part of its comedy.
I understand.
But let's be honest. There's a huge faction of the MAGA movement that's really racist.
I wouldn't say huge, no. I'd say partly.
I would say huge.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have different perspectives.
I would say huge, and even if they're not, you have to overlook a lot of that in order to support Donald Trump, which I think is maybe even more egregious than just saying I'm a racist.
Okay, Don Lemon's completely lost the plot. Bill Maher is trying to pull him back to earth and saying, dude, if you want to win elections, you got to be more centrist and stop calling everybody who disagrees with you racist. And Don Lemon keeps doubling down on it. Did you hear that little part at the beginning of that clip where he said, well, it's all comedy? Oh, so you're just saying this for show? You're just saying this for clicks? Yeah, Bill Maher shut him down really quick. And that podcast, Club Random, is a more laid-back, more subtle kind of podcast. But our friend Batya Ungar-Sargon was on with Bill Maher on Friday night. And in this clip, he tried to bait her, and she completely destroyed him. Give a listen.
We don't have time to fuck around. I'm going to go right at you because, you know, I've known you for a while, and when I first read you, you were a conservative Republican, but not crazy. Like I read you in where? Newsweek, Time Magazine? And I'm not saying you're crazy now, but you went from just a conservative, leaning right to a Trump supporter, okay? Someplace I would never go. And
I mean, the night is young, Bill.
It is not ever going to be that young. And I'm just wondering what you think now. We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't. That this is really going badly, and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
Well, would you like me to explain?
Please do, yes, please.
When I look at what President Trump ran on and the agenda that he's enacting right now, he took a Republican Party that was built on social conservatism, foreign interventions and wars, and free trade and free markets. And he basically took an axe to all of those. During the campaign, he said, look,
I mean, he's pretty pro-gay. That's pretty obvious. He appointed the highest-ranking out gay person, Scott Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, which is incredible. And he sidelined the pro-life wing of his party.
He has changed the party, for sure.
Okay, so he believes abortion should be legal for 12 weeks.
But free trade, you mentioned.
On foreign intervention, he's anti-war. He's trying to bring an end to all of these wars, okay?
By surrendering, but yes.
Okay.
I mean, that is one way to end the war.
Well, you know, he's on the other side of another party that is quite pro-war and wants to keep the war going, right?
So let me just get to the
third point. And the third point is, and he's not free trade. He does not believe in free trade. He looked at our destroyed manufacturing base. He looked at the downwardly mobile working class. He looked at the fact that working class Americans can no longer afford the American dream. And he looked at why that was, which was there was a handshake agreement between both parties that we should somehow have free trade, which resulted in shipping 5 million good manufacturing jobs overseas to build up China and Mexico.
And some came here.
No, what they did was they brought in millions and millions of illegal migrants to compete with the jobs that remained here. And what Donald Trump said was, we have to stop selling out the working class. That agenda that he laid out, socially moderate, anti-war, and anti-free trade protectionist, that is a leftist
Sam, I
agenda.
will bring you in, I swear to God.
She got her chance, and she actually disproved Bill Maher on his own show, even though the crowd was on his side. The poise it takes to do that in just when you have 30 seconds or a minute to do that is incredible. I should reach out to Batya, have her on the show. Actually, Batya and I tonight are going to be on Stacey on the Right over on Sirius XM's Patriot. We're going to be there discussing this clip and many, many other things. But she's 100% right. Donald Trump is pushing a whole bunch of leftist policies that are common sense, not leftist, I should say old school liberal Democrat policies for the working class. And the Democrats hate him so much they can't even acknowledge that he's pushing that kind of stuff. That's part of their agenda. They have completely lost the plot. They should be out there right now saying, yeah, Donald Trump's stealing our ideas. Instead, what are they doing? Oh, let's bring back the gang members. Let's bring them back. Crazy insanity. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, your chance to win $2,000 cash during our Golden Age of America contest. Plus, Seattle Times finally wants to talk about the autonomous zone. We'll give you the details. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Real Deal giveaway. But today begins our Trump's Golden Age of America contest, my friends.
But this will be the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history, maybe of global history. The Golden Age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the Golden Age of America, and that's what it's going to be.
That's what's going to be here on KVI. So let me tell you how this contest works. It's your chance to win $2,025 and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Now, all you have to do when I give you the keyword is text the keyword in. Don't call the show, text the keyword. If you don't know what a text is, I recommend this isn't the contest for you and you try calling at 4:45. But you text the keyword I give you, and you have until 5 o'clock to do it. Once 5 o'clock passes, that chance is over for the day. And your next chance to win is at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning during the commute with Carlson. So if you want to be in on today's chance to win $2,025 plus a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, all you have to do is text the keyword slay, as in that guy with the hatchet was going to go try and slay that other homeless guy. Just text the word slay, S-L-A-Y. Nothing else. Just the word slay to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And remember, you have until 5 o'clock to enter. Your next chance to win is coming up tomorrow at 8 a.m. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout or delivery order, and more. And thank you very much for helping to sponsor this contest. Exactly. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Scott in Issaquah. Scott, what's going on?
Oh, hey, Ari. Thanks for taking the call.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the madness, and I think there's only one way to explain it. These communist, Soviet-style socialists that want to have massive government, the only way they can do it is by creating problems. I mean, you're going to have, traffic on your roads, potholes, illegals flooding the country, not enough jobs for anyone, a housing crisis because the taxes are so high that nobody can afford anything, people dying from drugs. I don't care how many people died from drugs or how many wars they start. Anything they can to create a problem so they can continue to make an excuse for why they have to take away your constitutional rights and for why they have to increase taxes and expand government programs to take care of everybody. Because if everybody in this country was living like a true American and actually in a position where they didn't have to pay all these taxes and they could take care of themselves, take care of their own problems, we wouldn't need the government for anything, just like the founders intended it to be.
I completely agree with you. And actually, yesterday, my nephew called me. My nephew calls me about once a month to discuss politics. It's pretty entertaining. He calls me from college when he inevitably gets into some conversation with somebody about politics. And we were actually discussing free market and capitalism and how we don't actually have free markets right now. And if we had free markets right now, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems we had. And I actually explained it to him using the movie The Big Short. Have you ever seen that movie, Scott?
I've heard of that one. I don't think I have seen it.
Okay, you should check out The Big Short. It's great. It's about the housing market collapse in 2008. But they leave out one very important part of it. They talk about everything that contributed to it on Wall Street. But they forget to mention that the reason the housing market collapsed is because Democrats said, banks, you have to lend to anybody, including people who can't afford to pay their loans back. And that's what started this whole snowball effect that actually almost destroyed the entire world economy. Scott, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call, my friend. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And speaking of the boondoggle projects and dumb ideas that government has, this one cracked me up. So the city of Everett, by the way, the city of Everett has an electric bus fleet. They are now selling 9 of their electric buses and getting diesel buses instead. Why? Because they don't work. 5 out of the 9 electric buses are down for parts. They can't service them. They don't have people to work on them. By the way, this may be something that the people over at the colleges may want to think about. If you want to have the electric stuff everywhere, you got to have people who know how to work on the electric stuff. If they don't know how to work on the electric stuff, they can't fix the electric stuff. And the old school mechanics know how to work on internal combustion engines. So maybe that's something you guys should think about. So they had 9 of these Proterra buses, but there's one little teensy tiny problem. Proterra was boosted by the Biden-Harris administration. Proterra was the company that Joe Biden said, these are the buses of the future. Remember when Kamala Harris came to Seattle, talked about everybody loves a yellow school bus? You remember that? She was pushing Proterra. Now, we knew at the time that a whole bunch of school buses, electric school buses, were down because they didn't have the parts and couldn't do the maintenance. Well, now they gambled on Proterra. And the problem with Proterra was it went out of business. So now you can't get the parts for your electric buses, and now they have to get diesel. Even crazier is Everett is still saying, yeah, we know we got burned by this, but you know what? We're going to double down on this insanity and keep buying electric buses. You know what the problem is? I think that electric vehicle technology is wonderful and great and fantastic, but it's not there yet. It's always and. Something and. So, for example, somebody who drives a sports car, I don't know anybody who does that. You go, my sports car cannot go skiing. I cannot take my sports car to the mountains. Okay, I'm very well aware of that. So I've got my wife's SUV. I've got my son's truck. I can go to the mountains. I can go skiing with those. I'm very well aware of that. That was a choice I made. But with EVs, it seems like there's always some kind of condition. Oh, they're great for urban areas. They're not good for rural areas. You can't use them for this. You can't use them for that. Problem is, if you want to buy an EV, as we say in the Jewish world in Yiddish, gesundheit. Go buy an EV. But don't mandate that I have to buy an EV. My life is fine. And there are plenty of people in rural settings who don't want EVs. And here's something else. People assume that just because you have a bus or a truck and it's pushing out smog or whatever else because it's got an internal combustion engine, this technology is nowhere near what it used to be like when I drove a 1986 Camaro, when I would turn the sucker on, and just like in the Transformers movie with the 1973 Camaro Bumblebee, all of a sudden a cloud of smoke is coming out. That was my old car. It's not like that anymore, guys. Between emission standards and other stuff they have to do to these cars, it's much cleaner. They're much more efficient. So when you say diesel, ooh, diesel. But let's not forget, 5 minutes ago they were pushing natural gas on us. Something to think about, my friends. I saw this other story here from the friends of ours over at O'Shan and Associates. O'Shan and Associates, Evan O'Shan, who's the attorney, has been handling the cases for most of the people inside the autonomous zone who are victims of the autonomous zone. Remember that in 2020, Jenny Durkin said that when armed BLM and Antifa activists took over 6 blocks of the city, it was the summer of love. It was a block party. It was a street fair. Yeah, 6 black teens were shot. 2 of them were killed in this zone that was supposed to protest violence against black people. Well, last week, a letter was sent by O'Shan on behalf of the father of a black teen killed in Seattle's deadly 2020 autonomous zone, known as the CHAZ, to the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, officially requesting a congressional inquiry into his son's death. Now, what's even more fascinating about this, and why I thought this was such a good, interesting story for you, is because they're asking to look into the finances of the autonomous zone. Now, I was looking into the finances of the autonomous zone before I had a radio show. What are some of the things we found? The city of Seattle spent over $1 million installing the barricades to protect the occupiers and then remove them afterwards. That's your tax money, and a lot of it came from the Seattle Department of Transportation. Doesn't the Seattle Department of Transportation get federal funding? Don't they get state funding? Was this allocated towards occupiers of a spontaneous armed occupation of 6 blocks of Seattle, or was it allocated towards buying electric buses? Was it allocated towards building bike lanes? Was it allocated towards building bridges and tunnels and street repair? Because if you guys used it for something you weren't supposed to use it for, you got some serious legal issues. That's what makes this so fascinating. Because at the time, I was down there the day they were dropping those barricades. I watched the Seattle Department of Transportation do it with my own two eyes. I've got video of it from almost 5 years ago up on social media. Everybody's wearing the SDOT clothing. They're all doing it, and they did it in coordination with the rioters. Because the rioters we want it here, not there. There was even a discussion of what kind of barricades to use. So you negotiated with terrorists? According to the formal request to Congress that we got a hold of, Antonio Mays Jr. was just 16 years old when he came to Seattle to participate in the civil rights movement, believing he would be part of something meaningful. Tragically, he was met with violence instead. Robert West, a bright young boy, also sought to engage in the movement, but instead encountered a nightmare, the letter continued. He endured severe injuries, including part of his skull being removed due to a gunshot wound. Both boys were victims of a systemic failure that left them vulnerable and unprotected. The reality of the CHOP zone, because remember they changed the name to the Capitol Hill Organized Protest, was initially characterized by local officials, including Mayor Jenny Durkin, as a summer of love. However, this area devolved into chaos, where armed individuals governed the streets and violence was rampant. We all know this, right? Now, something fascinating about this. This was actually the shooting that was towards the end of the autonomous zone. This wasn't one of the bigger ones. Let me take you back to which one specifically this was, because there was so much violence. Do you remember this one? There was a white Jeep driving around inside the autonomous zone. And what happens is the CHOP security guards, which is armed Antifa and BLM activists, opened fire on the Jeep. They opened fire on it while it was zipping around Capitol Hill. They killed one boy and horrifically injured another. Now, they claim the Jeep was shooting at them, but we may never know what actually happened. Because, remember, police were not allowed inside the autonomous zone, thanks to those barricades installed by the Seattle Department of Transportation, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin, former Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best, evacuating a police precinct. Police were not allowed to be inside the autonomous zone, even after the violence went through the roof. Rapes, robberies, murders went up 250%, according to Seattle police at the time. What do we know happened after this? There were tons of people live streaming inside the autonomous zone because it was how you got clicks during the summer of love. Everybody wanted to catch the next horrific incident that happened inside the... Mike remembers this. Mike has been doing this longer than me. And I'm sure there were tons of these clips going around on the radio being played. I remember a specific clip, actually two specific clips at the time, which I believe I've shared before. After this Jeep was shot up and crashed into barricades and a porta potty that were installed by the city of Seattle outside the abandoned police precinct, I remember you hearing people discussing, oh, he's not dead yet, and then one of them's dead and the other one's not. And then I also remember discussions, and I'm paraphrasing here, about cleaning up the evidence, removing the shell casings, removing the weapons. I remember all that from those live streams. So basically what happened was the Chaz occupiers probably were the ones contaminating the crime scene and taking the evidence of what happened, including any weapons. If there were weapons inside that Jeep, we don't know. Now, one guy, whose name shall remain nameless for the moment. One guy in particular was being blamed by the CHOP occupiers for being involved in this, and he claims he took the weapons to the CHOP Chaz armory. They had an armory? Tell me about your mostly peaceful protest again. Now, this guy was later arrested following the January 6th incidents, not for what happened in January 6th, for claiming he was going to go to Florida's capital to round up Trump supporters. He was served time in federal prison for doing that, and a lot of people are convinced he's one of the people who opened fire or at least tampered with the evidence inside the autonomous zone. We may never know because all the investigations have gone absolutely nowhere. The majority of these crimes that happen inside the autonomous zone, nobody's been sentenced for. Nobody's even been prosecuted for. Nobody's even been named as a suspect for, except for maybe one of them. So, the Seattle Department of Transportation may have allegedly used funds that were federal funds earmarked for other projects, or state funds that were earmarked for other projects, or city funds that were earmarked for other projects, in order to protect the rioters in the autonomous zone. And now this becomes a Doge case. Not saying Doge is necessarily the one that's going to investigate this, but the House Oversight Committee, they should be finding out where this money went and where it was supposed to go. And I'm saying this right now. I am happy to give any member of the House Oversight Committee that wants it all the public records requests we did during that time, including the ones from city officials, from the Parks Department, from the Department of Transportation, who were begging for the National Guard, who were begging for intervention. Remember what happened when Donald Trump sent in federal agents to do something about the autonomous zone? Jenny Durkin and Jay Inslee said, get out of our city, get out of our state. And when we tried to hold them accountable, where were all their text messages? Missing. Now, the Seattle Times sort of covered this story. Their emphasis was on the wrong syllable. Yes, I know I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Their emphasis was on the wrong syllable. Why? They focused it on Antonio Mays Jr. just came for racial justice in the Block Party street fair, and what he found was violence. No. Right here, what the story is now his family wants Congress to investigate if what the actions of Seattle and King County and Washington State led to his death by using your taxpayer funds to support the armed occupiers of 6 blocks of the largest city in this state. And I hope they do. I hope they do investigate it. Seattle Times did one other thing that irked me. At the bottom of this article, they had a little survey. And the survey was talking about, do you remember CHOP? Send us your stories. Send us your experiences. Now, Mike, you and I both know what they are actually looking for in this case. They're looking for social justice. It was amazing, and I felt so empowered to be part of BLM. Yeah, that's not what it was. Because when I put up a screenshot of that ask last night, I had people reach out to me with their stories of what happened in the autonomous zone, of the violence they dealt with, and they were just trying to live their lives because they lived in that 6-block radius, or they worked in that 6-block radius. And then the Seattle Times, when the Seattle Times really wants you to see something, they send an email out about it. I'm still on their email list, even though I don't have a subscription, which is why I post their articles from time to time. I post screenshots of it because I don't want to give them the clicks. They sent out this survey via email, which means they really want the lefties to say, oh, it was mostly peaceful. It was a street fair. It was a block party. Don't listen to people like Ari Hoffman, who said crime went through the roof. That's exactly what happened. They're trying to rewrite the past. You know what, guys? You did a decent job with those text messages. People like me filed and got a no records when we asked for Jenny Durkin, Carmen Best, Harold Scoggins, all their text messages. The Seattle Times sued over it and did the right thing and said, this is ridiculous. You're not allowed to delete your text messages. We want to know what happened. But yet they kept calling it the mostly peaceful block party, street fair, summer of love. They kept using that narrative as opposed to calling it what it actually was, a death zone. And now you're trying to rewrite history? Now you're trying to say, whoa, we were right. It was a mostly peaceful protest. You know what? The New York Times released an article today. And the article they wrote was about how wrong they got COVID and how the lab leak theory was real and how the mask didn't work and all that other stuff. When's the Seattle Times finally going to open their eyes? Because don't forget, during one of the presidential debates when Donald Trump mentioned CHOP, the Seattle Times goes, no, it was mostly peaceful. Block, give me a break. They're still doing this nonsense years later. And how many millions of dollars has the city of Seattle already paid out in settlements? What, 12, 13, 14 million dollars? So they're trying to rewrite history again so they can say, oh, it was a mostly peaceful block party? Give me a break. It was a zone of death. It was a zone of violence paid for with your taxpayer dollars. And nobody's been held accountable. Not Jenny Durkin, not Carmen Best. Harold Scoggins is still our fire chief. He's still the fire chief of Seattle, despite multiple problems, including lack of people who want to work for this fire department. He's still the fire chief. Nobody's been held accountable for the autonomous zone. I am begging, I am pleading the House Oversight Committee to take this up because I want to know the answers. And I don't care that's 5 years later. I know what I know. I want to see what else we can dig up because I don't believe the real story of the corruption of the autonomous zone and the government enablement of it has actually been told yet. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. The superintendent of Seattle Public Schools is calling it quits after just signing a mega contract. This doesn't make much sense. Is it the Trump effect? We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Seattle Superintendent Brett Jones announced today that he is leaving the school district. And he made the announcement only a month after he got a 1-year contract extension to stay on through June of 2027. Now, before I put on my tinfoil hat, and before we go to conspiracy theory town, and I want your theories as well, let me tell you what he told the Seattle Times. Jones' last day with Seattle Public Schools will be September 3rd. The early announcement gives the district time to plan a transition and set up a smooth handoff for the new superintendent. Smooth handoff, you say? Okay. Smooth handoff. Let's go through the problems Seattle Public Schools is facing. Let's see. Massive budget crisis, enrollment dropping through the floor, and potentially the Trump administration coming after them over DEI insanity. Now, one of those issues might be solved by the Washington State Legislature because Seattle Public Schools is among the many public school districts in the state that is begging for bailouts from the Washington State Legislature. And even though we have this massive budget gap, they'll probably get funded because, the children. It's almost like they're daring the Trump administration to come after them for the DEI stuff. Jones confirmed in an interview on Monday with the Times that he planned to move to California to be with his family. His wife, Janine Jones, was appointed Associate Vice Chancellor for Graduate Affairs at the University of Southern California, Santa Barbara, earlier this month. Jones' decision was in part, prompted by his wife getting this golden opportunity, he said, but it's also time to hand off the baton to someone else. Whoa. Why would you have fought so hard for the ridiculous raise they voted for you, even though your tenure has been an absolute disaster for students in the Seattle Public School District? Why would you fight so hard for that unless you didn't know you were going to be leaving? Now, do I think that he got fired? No. Do I question if it was we're going to need somebody to blame this on if things go south? Maybe, but then they wouldn't have rehired him. You know what I think it is? I think he's no fool, and he can see the writing on the wall. Does he want his name in the headlines going head-to-head with the Trump administration? No, because there's really no upside for him with that. He's already in the wokest school district. How many other school districts are going to hire a guy, except for maybe in California or Oregon, are going to hire a guy who went head-to-head over DEI? He's probably getting out now because, yes, I'm sure his wife got this lovely opportunity, 1,000%. But do you want to be numero uno on Trump's hit list? Given the fact of what's going on with the universities, it's only a matter of time until they get to the public school districts, and that time is coming quickly. And who do you think they're going to be pointing out? The poster child, Ian Golash. The guy who's not just teaching DEI in the classrooms that men can get pregnant and failing kids who say that they can't. But you know what else? The guy who was supporting Hamas terrorists. The guy who is currently still earning your taxpayer dollars while he's on leave, pending an investigation. We already did the investigation, guys. You just can't fire him because of the teachers' unions. Now, meanwhile, Randy Weingarten, head of one of the largest teachers' unions in the U.S., is freaking out that Donald Trump is targeting the Department of Education. I don't know why. If school districts locally are going to be getting the money, you should be right. You run a national school district. This is her freaking out on a podcast.
And when they cut half the people, it's like evisceration by 1,000 cuts. Yeah. So you want to do this? Have the fight with us in Congress. Let's make sure we get the issues out there. I'm so mad. I'm spitting mad about this because it's hurting the people who can't vote. Children don't vote. Let's not take away their opportunity.
Oh, give me a break. Sorry, that was MSNBC, not a podcast. Give me a break. This has nothing to do with the kids. If it had to do with the kids, your scores wouldn't be going through the floor. If it had to do with the kids, you wouldn't have kept them locked out of schools for 2 years. If it had to do with the kids, you wouldn't have had the Department of Justice. You wouldn't have asked the Biden administration to use the Department of Justice to target parents who are just looking out for their kids' education. What's Randy Weingarten most worried about is that schools and states may start doing the voucher program. This is what she said on a podcast.
Equally pernicious, they're saying, oh, don't worry, let's block grant it. So we'll give it to a state education department So, and then let the state education department decide what to do. So we know, for example, what Texas would do.
Right.
They'll use it
We
for
do.
vouchers. So they
Yeah.
won't give it to the kids who have it now. They'll just give it for vouchers.
Catholic schools, religious schools.
This is flat out fear mongering. That's not how vouchers work. And we've seen in states like Florida that the voucher system actually makes the public schools better. Randy Weingarten just doesn't want to give up her money, because if she gives up her money, she can't sway political candidates anymore. She can't get candidates elected anymore, and she loses her power. That's what this is really about. And speaking of power, is a prosecutor abusing their power by targeting a Republican because he wouldn't wear a mask at a voting polling station during the last election? When we come back, the man who's being targeted by that prosecutor joins us to tell us his story. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Over the weekend, a bunch of you, including family members of mine, sent me an article from the New York Times admitting that the COVID virus came from the Wuhan lab, admitting that everything they knew about COVID and following the science was complete junk. That's the New York Times. They are most definitely not in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy, and yet some people are still using COVID as if it's some kind of club, threatening it. We saw the Washington State Legislature is now saying, hey, we're going to impose vaccine mandates or health guidance based on the best health available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We saw all that happening, and Governor Bob Ferguson is not going to have his emergency powers reined in. So, now that you've heard all of that, I want you to consider this. A man went to a polling location on Election Day to observe the election, gets arrested for not wearing a mask, even though other people there are not wearing masks, and there's no rule that can require him to wear a mask, and now they're trying to hit him with felony charges. COVID has not ended, my friends. It's a weapon that the left is using to target people they don't like. Joining us now on the KVI studio line, the man who is now under felony indictment for observing an election peacefully and patriotically, Tim Hazelow. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ari. I've been listening to you for a while, and I've always wanted to get on and speak with you. I just didn't think it would be over something this silly.
Well, dude, that's why we got the phone lines. You can call anytime you want at 206-421-5757 or text us at 206-421-5757. Tim, let's start from the beginning. It's Election Day. You're hoping President Trump is going to win. You're heading out to your polling station to go observe the elections. Tell us what happens then.
Yeah, so, I mean, it started a little bit before that. So the week before, we found out that the auditor was going to require a mask mandate. So we, as the chairman of the party at the time, we filed a cease and desist letter. We called and complained. We did everything we could legally do to get her to stop that mask mandate without actually going to court. Well, they didn't even give us the courtesy of a response. So on the Monday before Election Day, November 4th, I went in. I figured, well, maybe they just, like in August, they just decided the mask mandate was silly, which it is, and that you could go in and it was optional. So I went and sat down, signed in, right, checked off the rules, which didn't say anything about wearing a mask, went in and sat down. After quietly and peacefully watching the process for a while, they came in and asked me to leave for not wearing a mask, and I questioned the authority. That's all I did. I said, where do you get the authority to do this? What RCW? What legislation? And they couldn't answer any of that. And so after about maybe a 45-second conversation with the police officers, I got up and peacefully walked out with them, was cited with disorderly conduct, and now I'm facing this extremely crazy, politically motivated, at least in my mind, prosecuting attorney up here, which I guess isn't that strange for Washington. But, and you know the guy. I mean, you've talked about him in the past, so.
So let's break it down for a second, just so people know exactly what you're talking about. So what happened is I heard you speak at the Eastside Republican Club. You were the opening act for me, and I wish I could take you with me everywhere because you were a hit. So I got Tim talking before me, and as Tim describes the story, what happens is basically he's got these nothing burger charges, and in swoops the prosecutor, who is a hardcore radical leftist who has crazy social media posts that he had to delete because they were so bad, who now comes along and says, we're going to hit you with federal election interference charges because the other ones are so minor, but if you had pled guilty to the minor charges, they would have skipped all this. Kind of feels like political persecution to me. How about you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I said this to the last interview. You know, if they would have said, hey, you got this misdemeanor of disorderly conduct for not leaving the first time they asked you, which was still peaceful, by the way. Yeah, maybe okay, let's talk about that. Maybe trespassing for being there after they asked you to leave. Maybe okay, but you start adding all these together, and then you add in the fact that this guy has went out and actually wished death upon Trump supporters and conservatives. He's actually went out and compared us to the KKK. I mean, these are the things this guy has done. When you add all that together, I'm not in that dude's head, and believe me, that's not a place I think I would want to be. But it looks like political prosecution. It looks like a frivolous case because the felony they're charging me with, unauthorized access to a polling place.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you explain how I was unauthorized when I signed in, acknowledged rules, was shown where to sit?
Well, not just that. I mean, I'm looking at the video footage. I've seen the video footage, the body cam footage from the police officers, which is out there on the internet. And the fascinating thing to me is there's other people there not wearing masks. I mean, doesn't this case get chucked right away because it seems like they're going after you and nobody else?
Well, you know, I'm on my way to Coopville right now to attend the arraignment of Tracy Abel, who's being charged with the same exact crimes I am, who refused to give in to the misdemeanors and is facing the same prosecutor with the same felony charges. So, yeah, it does seem like maybe her and I mean, you know me, and you've known of me for a few years now. I'm kind of the de facto conservative Trump guy of Island County. As the chairman of the party for years, I ran for Congress. I've got some background here. So maybe he's just trying to make an example. I mean, I can't come up with anything else.
That actually tracks. That's what I believe, too, because here's something. Let's look at this for a second. If you're on top of the world and you're winning, then what you do is you don't need to do things like this because it just makes you look petty, right? I'm not talking about what you did. I'm talking about what the prosecutor's doing, right? So the Democrats run Washington State. They run most of the counties in Washington State. They run all the government agencies that really can do anything to mess with your life right here in Washington State. Going after you seems like a nothing burger. It just seems like they want to target the little guy to eliminate dissent. That's my political opinion.
Well, yeah, and here's the crazy part about it is we're in the state of Washington, and so now I worry because not only I'm not even going to say that's crazy. This is sheer insanity going on in the state of Washington. It's insanity versus even the sliver of common sense on our side is being squashed by these people. There's, like you said, it's a nothing burger. We're going to fight it to the end. The problem I run into, and you and I had this conversation, is, the process is the punishment. Look at Donald Trump. Look at President Trump.
Sure.
How many millions of dollars did he spend defending himself? And I don't have millions of dollars. That's the difference.
Yeah. Believe me, I understand. Having had people target me for illegal stuff in the past, I completely get it. Yep. Tim, I want to follow your case, so can you please be in touch with us with any updates as this continues?
Yeah, sure will. And I'll send you anything that comes up, and if it's interesting to you, just reach out to me and we'll talk about it.
You're the man, Tim. If people want to help you out, if they want to learn more, do you have a website or anything where you're posting updates, social media perhaps?
Yeah, I'm using my Facebook page. It's Tim Hazelow for America.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hazelow is spelled H-A-Z as in zebra, E-L-O, Echo Lima Oscar. So if you go check that out, I don't deny anybody access to that. You know what? I'm a free speech guy, obviously. So go check that out. That's where the most of the information is, and then you can get links to other places through there.
Tim Hazelow, thank you for standing up for our elections. Thank you for standing up for common sense. And thank you for being a beacon of hope for all of us and pushing back against this crazy insanity. I'm really sorry for what you're going through, but thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate it, Ari, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. We got a whole lot more to discuss, including the latest movie reviews and your chance to win fantabulous prizes. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is so great when you expect something from a movie and it delivers on exactly what you expect. Is that so much to ask? You market something, you tell us it's going to be something, then deliver what it is. And that's exactly what Mike and I got out of Novocaine. Jack Quaid, who you probably don't know, leads a cast of people who you probably don't know. This is our movie for this year, the sleeper hit, I would say, even though it's early this year, where it gave us what we wanted and we loved it. So, for example, The Cocaine Bear. The only one you really knew in that was Kerry Russell and our friend, may he rest in peace, Ray Liotta. For the rest of that movie, you didn't know. Super dead. You didn't know most of the people in that movie. But it promised stupid, fun violence. We got it. Last year, The Beekeeper, that was that movie. Another movie with Jason Statham. Novocaine is so much fun. It's so great. The entire time in the theater, you're just going, oh, while laughing. It is so much fun. I would watch this movie anytime it's on TV. In fact, I told my wife, we're going to watch this when it comes out on download. And she goes, so it's like The Cocaine Bear where I could take breaks if I need to? I go, yes. It is very gory. It is very violent. Do not eat while watching this movie. But it is super, super fun. The one person you might know from this movie, Jack Quaid is the son of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid. You've seen him in some Star Trek stuff, but it's edgy Star Trek stuff. Like you've seen him in Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. You haven't seen him in the mainstream stuff. Jacob Batalon, who's the sidekick for Peter Parker in the new Spider-Man movies, you might recognize him. Most of the people in this have bit roles in other movies, other TV shows. Everybody's great. I had a great time. It's a fun movie. Check it out, whether it's in theaters or whether it's not, but I recommend you watch it in one setting for maximum fun. Mike, what'd you think?
I think, unfortunately, they gave away all of the gags in the trailer.
Yes.
Which was kind of disappointing, but what I found is as I watched it, and we had a terrific, great time with it, but what I found is that knowing all the jokes and all the gags, it didn't matter because you're there for the fun and the romp of it. And this is a better version of a movie that I saw. We didn't talk about it on the show, but I saw Love Hurts a couple weeks ago, the Valentine's movie with Ki-Hye Kwan and Marshawn Lynch in it. And that movie sucks. And part of it is because it's so flat and there's no chemistry between the leads. You buy the romance angle here. Amber Midthunder, who plays the female love interest, folks might remember her from that Predator sequel that I was so nutty about a couple years ago, Prey, that was on the Hulu and stuff. But they have very real chemistry that's a lot of fun. And I had a blast with it. I told the nice lady with the clipboard that it's more fun than it had any right to be. And I think little Jack Quaid, little Nepo baby himself, he's got the juice.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is going to be the springboard to bigger and better things for him. I've seen it going viral over the weekend based on his costuming towards the end of the movie that they want to see a Max Payne reboot with Jack Quaid in there. And I would co-sign that. I think that would be kind of fun because it's kind of the same thing. The character doesn't feel pain and can stop time and all that other video gamey stuff. But yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's fun, and it's. The thing that also struck me is that it wasn't as zany and silly as I thought. It's over the top. It's very graphic. It's very violent. There's pervasive language all throughout. But when it's not doing the gags that you see in the trailer, it's a real movie with believable interpersonal relationships. You understand this guy's motivation, and he's not a cartoon man in a way that they could have done that. There's a cartoonier version of this that this kind of isn't. I was kind of stricken by kind of like how relatively grounded they tried to make it with this absurd premise of this very real condition where the dude's got nerve damage and can't feel pain or whatever, but they they sell it in a way that's believable and plausible and grounded, like in a way that, say, like a Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't.
Yes.
Like two characters that are invincible and it has no stakes. Whereas when this dude steps on a nail, you feel it on behalf of him. And again, it's a lot of fun. And I think folks should go check it out and take your sweetie if they have the stomach for the violence.
Yes, I thought there was some very sweet moments in this movie. Mike and I loved it. You should go see it too. Novocaine is in theaters right now. Now your chance to win fantabulous prizes today. Yeah! We are giving away 2 tickets to the next movie we hope is like this, a Working Man advanced screening, plus a prize pack. Jason Statham left behind a decorated military career in the Black Ops to live a simple life, working construction. But that's not to be. Human traffickers beware. A Working Man is in theaters on March 28th. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes, including 2 tickets to a Working Man advanced screening and a prize pack, be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. When we come back, how Trump taking down the Houthi rebels could actually help fix the economy. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including our Good News giveaway, and you can be just like Stephen Graham, who won 2 tickets to a Working Man advanced screening plus a prize pack during our Real Deal giveaway. Over the weekend, there was a lot of talk about Donald Trump going to war with the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea in Yemen. It is good for the economy, and it left me wondering why Joe Biden didn't take the easy win. Let me explain. The Houthi rebels, shortly after October 7th, they're also another Hamas-backed terrorist group, an Iranian-backed terrorist group, started attacking shipping in the Red Sea. They also started attacking Israel and American interests in the Red Sea. Now, when you start having pirates in a certain area, yes, that's basically what they are. If you've seen the movie Captain Phillips with Tom Hanks, you're dealing with that only worse because they just seem to want to blow stuff up, not necessarily hijack anything. Well, now people are going to avoid the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is a cut-through for shipping. So now, for those of you who remember your atlas and your geography, or watched Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and never knew where any of the countries were on that Africa map, or thought Africa was a country, either way, now shipping has to go around the Horn of Africa, where there are Somali pirates also, and then come back up to go across. That's the math. That can add 2 weeks to a voyage. Arnold Schwarzenegger wouldn't be happy about that. It could add 2 weeks. In addition to that, it adds tremendous expense. The fuel costs and everything else. What, you think Maersk is just going to eat that? Of course not. They're going to roll it over to the people who are shipping it. And you think the people who are shipping it are just going to eat it? No, they roll it over to the people who are buying it. It gets rolled over to you, the consumer. There are estimates out there that what's going on in the Red Sea right now is contributing as much as 0.6% to inflation. Now, you may think to yourself, that doesn't sound like a lot. But given how much inflation has jacked up, do you know that Joe Biden, if he had taken on the Houthi rebels successfully, might have actually been able to bring down inflation during his presidency? Or whoever was running the auto pen could have brought down inflation. We don't even know who is actually running the auto pen, but we'll come back to the auto pen in a second. Going to war with the Houthi rebels, who have said they want the end of America and they want the end to Israel, will not just make the world a safer place, but it'll also bring down the cost of goods and deal with our supply chain issues. This is nothing new for the United States. We've been taking on pirates since Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Coast. Now, a whole bunch of you are getting triggered by history class. I know. Okay, I was too when I was looking up all this stuff, all right? That's what the Americas do. We take on pirates. That's what we've been doing since Thomas Jefferson. So, my friends, this is a win-win for everybody. Why didn't the Biden administration do it? Were they that inept? They just didn't care? They were trying to make nice to Iran. We don't want to take down your terrorist proxy group? Because let's remember, there's been a civil war in Yemen for years now, literally 4 years. And this group cannot be more clear about what they want. They want the end of America. They want the end of Israel. That's what they want. Getting rid of them is a bonus for everybody. Here's what the Pentagon spokesperson said.
Firing at U.S. military personnel in the region and shooting at our ships and shooting at our drones and putting American lives at risk is not a good way to end this conflict. The Houthis could stop this tomorrow if they said, we're going to stop shooting at your people. But they've clearly chosen not to do that. And so this campaign will be relentless to degrade their capability and to open up shipping lanes in the region and to defend our homeland. But General,
thanks, Sean. The only thing I would add is, the Houthis claim to have tried to attack the Harry S. Truman. Quite frankly, it's hard to tell because while we're executing precision strikes, they missed by over 100 miles. So I would just tell you their effectiveness. I would question anything that they claim in the press that they're doing or not doing. It's very hard to tell what they are just based on their level of incompetence that they've demonstrated.
Yes, but incompetence can still be dangerous and can still get lucky. Now, one thing that terrorist organizations like the Houthi rebels, like Hamas, like Hezbollah have figured out is that they're making Israel and America and other countries waste a lot of money taking them out. Let's say they launch a $100 drone at a U.S. ship. The U.S. ship has got to spend a $10,000, $50,000, $1 million missile taking down that little drone. So they don't care if they're annoying. They're going to keep doing this, trying to degrade our capabilities and making us wonder if we should be spending the money on it anymore. Yes, we should. Yes, we should be taking them out. There's a weird narrative that's emerged from the far right and the far left, because we know the only thing they actually agree on is hating Jews. They're trying to say, oh, this is a war on behalf of Israel. No, our shipping goes through there, guys. This is contributing to inflation. This is contributing to supply chain issues. The problem was nobody in the Biden administration was working in concert together. You would have thought that Pete Buttigieg would say, hey, we're having an issue with supply chain issues. I'm the Secretary of Transportation. Hey, can I talk to the Secretary of Defense about this Red Sea issue and maybe we could take care of it? Nah. It seemed like the Biden administration didn't even want to deal with this. Sure, they send ships there occasionally, and occasionally they fired off a missile and felt good about themselves, but it didn't seem like they were in it to win it. Trump seems like he's in it to win it. Seems like this entire cabinet is in it to win it. Oh, and by the way, the absolute deliciousness of this administration's meme ability, oh, it's absolutely priceless. Their quotable lines are amazing. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was in the press briefing room today, and she got asked about some random French politician who wants us to give back the Statue of Liberty. Okay, how about we just take back all those soldiers that gave their lives on Normandy? All right, let's leave that alone for a second, but she had such a great answer. Oh, it was absolutely delicious and immediately went viral.
There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
Boom. Roasted. Oh, that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I like any joke that makes fun of the French. I really, really do. But yeah, that's the absolute truth. They would be speaking German if not for us right now. How many thousands, tens of thousands of Americans gave their lives to liberate France from occupation by Germany? Yeah, think about that for a second. Oh, what, they don't like our immigration policy? All right, you take all the members of Tren de Aragua that are in our country. By the way, she's not the only one with quotable lines in this administration. So Donald Trump pulled out the act from 1798 about having aliens/illegal immigrants in this country. And what was amazing was the left media immediately went bonkers crazy. How can you use an old law? How can you do that? How can you use an old law to do that? Well, my friends, we got this answer for you right here. This one was absolute gold, which is, hang on a second, got to find it right here. I just reshuffled all my audio right here. Here it is when the reporter asked Tom Homan about that.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process.
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more terrorists do you plan on deporting to El Salvador?
Boom. That's the thug life meme right there. I can just see the sunglasses coming down on Tom Homan right now. Yeah, exactly right. I can see it. There were other great moments. So over the weekend, what was happening? We're deporting all these illegal gang members. And when the White House posted about it, in fact, I think it was Kristi Noem in the Department of Homeland Security is posting about it. They had a normal post. You know, we deported all these gang members. Here's how many. Here's where we sent them to. We sent them to El Salvador. What does the White House retweet it with? A picture of, this is the official White House account, Donald Trump waving from the McDonald's window. Not just that. They had a video. My wife showed it to me this morning. They had a video of these guys in the shackles and the chains, and I thought this was going to be some kind of Con Air parody or something. No, it's really the Tren de Aragua gang members being shipped off to El Salvador in the chains. And what's playing? Semisonic's Closing Time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The left can't meme. The left cannot meme. And that's why their poll numbers are dropping. Not because the right can meme and they can't, but because the right can make their case on these 80-20 issues. We have to take out the Houthi rebels, a terrorist organization. We have to deport the illegal immigrants who are gang members. And meanwhile, what does the left do? We need men in women's sports. We need men in women's locker rooms. Perhaps that's why the latest poll from NBC that's being reported by CNN, two organizations that are not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy, perhaps that's why the Democrat support is at record low levels.
I'm a big fan of the oldies, and when it comes to the feelings that Americans, voters at large, and Democrats have, I can't help but think of Chubby Checker. Why is that? Because the question is, how low can you go? Voters' views of Democrats in Congress, the lowest ever approval ratings on record per Quinnipiac University. Look at this. Approve 21% among all voters. Look at the disapprove level. Holy Toledo, 68% of all voters disapprove of how Democrats are doing in Congress. Now, you might think that is low, and this is the lowest number on your screen here down at 21%. But I want to bring you over here to how Democratic voters feel, because this is truly unbelievable. Amongst their own party, how do Democratic representatives, senators, how are they viewed? Get this, the plurality disapprove at 49%. More Democrats disapprove of the job that their party is doing in Congress than approve. Get this, only 40% approve. These are truly horrific numbers. They are in the trash bin of history. That is how low these approval ratings are. When you can't even get plurality approval among your own party, you know you're doing something wrong in the eyes of the...
Because how can you defend what the Democrats are defending? They can't. These are indefensible positions. Why do we want to stop what's going on at the border? Why do we want to seal the border? Maybe this is why.
The number of unaccompanied minors at the border also dropping. In total, more than 540,000 children crossed into the U.S. alone during the Biden administration. At its peak in December of 2023, under the previous administration, more than 4.5% of those crossings were unaccompanied children. But now, those minors account for less than 0.5% of crossings.
Thank you to Fox News for that report. But how long were we talking about a human catastrophe at the border? We tried to put a human face on it with the human suffering, with the human trafficking, with the angel families, with all this. But no, for the Democrats, it was about votes. How can the Democrats defend wanting to keep gang members in the U.S.? They can't.
I would remind everybody in this room that Tren de Aragua is a foreign terrorist organization operating within the United States of America because the previous administration allowed them to invade our country. These are monsters who tortured, raped, and murdered a 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungre. They murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. They led a multi-state sex trafficking operation involving smuggling women into the United States, holding them in stash houses in Louisiana, Florida, New Jersey, Texas, and Virginia, and forcing them into prostitution. They kidnapped and murdered a 33-year-old woman in Texas. They sexually and physically assaulted a woman and her daughter in Wisconsin. They conducted a mass shooting in Illinois. They peddled untraceable ghost guns across New York City, took over an Aurora, Colorado apartment complex where they kidnapped and tortured victims. And by the way, many of you in the mainstream media said that didn't happen. It turned out that it did. And because of the effective immigration policies of this administration, those foreign terrorists were detained and they are no longer operating on American soil, and we have President Trump to thank for that.
Caroline Levitt is 100% correct. These are indefensible positions where you want to keep gang members in the U.S., where you want to keep terrorists in the U.S., where you want to let terrorists attack our shipping routes. These are indefensible positions, and yet that's exactly what the Democrats are trying to do. And that's why they're sinking in the polls, and that's why Donald Trump is rising in the polls. Last week, we spent an inordinate amount of time discussing how Democrats could just be going after the economy, but oh, wait, price of eggs is coming down. Oh, wait, price of gas is coming down. Not here in Washington, but it's coming down in other places. They had the perfect opening, and they blew it. Absolutely blew it. How badly did they blow it? Chuck Schumer is canceling his book tour. He has a new book coming out talking about anti-Semitism. Oh, please. You helped foster it. But he's got this new book tour coming out, and he doesn't want to face his own constituents because he knows the far left radicals are going to show up and everybody on the right is going to show up to yell at him. He can't defend any of his positions. And he's getting trouble from his far left flank, and he's getting trouble from Republicans. Democrats do not know how to recover from any of this because Donald Trump has put them on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from George of Arabia. George, what's going on?
Yes, as you know, I was a Navy commander and tactician and pilot, and I was in Red Sea Troop Number 1. My dad was with the airlines in Jeddah, and that was between the two Arab-Israeli wars. And as you know, they sunk a bunch of ships in the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is important, equal to the Panama Canal, you know, for half the freaking world. Well, we used to get ice cream that had crystal chunks in it, you know, because it went around the Cape of Horn of Africa.
It was frozen so long is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, the extra 30 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And as you know, the waters off of the south end of Africa are just about like Terra del Fuego. That's terrible, right? I mean, the seas are rough.
Yeah.
And so you take a lot of risk. And then when I was in the Navy, I was sitting there in the smallest emirate, Fujairah, and there were 250 ships with holes in them from Iran shooting missiles at them and rocket-propelled grenades with the little small boats. And I was having beers with a Norwegian master of a super tanker, and he had to get off. They had to put on the Filipino crew because Lloyd's of London wouldn't insure them through the Strait of Hormuz.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just psycho. And Biden took a couple shots with the missile launchers, and then the F-18s had a midair, and then the two SEALs died, you know, and one trying to save the other. You know, we lost some people, and it was terrible, but mistakes are made. And when op-tempo, PERS tempo isn't happening, you're just sitting on your ass on Gonzo Station. That's what they used to call the North Arabian Sea off of Iran when we were going to go in, right? The carrier was out there for a year one time. Well, anyway, now these guys are there. You know, they redeploy the carrier, and you got the two ditches, you know, and they're not very deep, so the carrier going through is tough. One thing that hasn't happened is Iran hasn't mined everything. Before they had Soviet-era mines. That's what the Samuel B. Roberts hit.
Well, here's the thing.
You know,
Let me ask you this, George. Let me ask you this. Do you think Iran wants a direct conflict with the United States, or you think they're attacking them through the proxies because they know the second there's a direct conflict with the United States, all of a sudden it's going to be bye-bye time for the Iranian regime and the Ayatollahs?
Well, you saw how quickly we took out Iraq.
Exactly. George, I appreciate the historical perspective. Appreciate your sharing of information on the show, as always. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, now the criminals in Seattle are stealing fire vehicles to crash into fire departments to steal fire equipment. Wonder what your theories are on why they're doing this. We'll discuss when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the Washington State Spring Fair. Yeah, another reason always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So, earlier in the show, we were talking about how the city of Everett now had to get rid of most of its electric buses from Proterra, which was the company that was championed by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the wave of the future. Why? Because they went bankrupt. And now you can't get parts for those buses anymore. So now they have to bring in diesel buses. This is just cracking me up. Como News, over the weekend, Chris Daniels, their senior reporter, had a story that we did not too long ago. And I love that the mainstream media is finally picking up this story about Jay Inslee's EV rebate being a colossal failure.
Marion Preston, no one is disputing that dealerships in Washington State are selling a lot of EVs, primarily to wealthier families. We're just talking specifically about that program that was targeted to lower to middle-income families and getting them to buy lower-level EVs. Well, according to the numbers, it fell short in more ways than one, and that is why one author is calling the program a waste of time and money.
We didn't get anything for it. We didn't get any environmental benefit.
That's Todd Myers of the Washington Policy Center, who says a heralded $45 million state program under-delivered. Do you think this program was a waste?
I think it clearly was a waste.
In 2024, Washington's then governor said a new rebate program would jumpstart EV sales for lower-income families.
About the easiest $9,000 you've ever had.
And even set a number on how many.
The goal of this new incentive program is to get at least 7,000 to 8,000 more electric vehicles on the roadways here in Washington State.
But Myers says, based on state data, less than 5,000 vehicles were sold using the program.
And the amount of CO2 emissions that it reduced was equivalent to 0.03% of total CO2, transportation-related CO2 for 1 year. $45 million for 0.03% reduction, that's just wasteful.
What about the argument that it hasn't done enough to reduce carbon emissions?
Well, I don't know how you can say that without knowing how much each driver drove the vehicle, right?
House Transportation Chair, Democrat Jake Fye of Tacoma, still believes the program was a success.
I wouldn't consider it to be a waste of money because of the benefit that we've talked about, benefiting people who's struggling to pay the costs for their transportation.
Another report from the Alliance for Automotive Innovation says Washington does have the third highest EV share of any state, while conversely ranks 46th in the ratio of EVs to public chargers, leading Myers to suggest state public spending priorities should be different.
If we really care about fighting climate change, we need to make sure every dollar is spent well.
Inslee had talked about expanding this EV credit program in this session, but it's unclear exactly where this stands. I did reach out to Washington Governor Bob Ferguson about this today, but my inquiry was not returned. That's the story for now. Live in Seattle, I'm Chris Daniels, Como News.
So let me make sure I got this right. Your EV incentive program was a failure. And the question is, how can we put more money into it? We said when they passed this stupidity, Mike, I'm old enough to remember a year ago, 2 years ago, when they passed this stupidity, where I said this is going to subsidize rich people's toys with your tax money. Guess what it did? Subsidized rich people's toys with your tax money. Now, I know we bash on EVs all the time in this show, but I'm going to tell you something. You want to drive an EV? Drive an EV. I am fine with that. Perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean I have to stop driving my car, my Dodge Charger that I like very, very much, that my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram just serviced. It doesn't mean I have to stop driving that. Maybe one day the technology will get good enough that then I actually want to drive an EV, or I think it's reliable for the long trips I take or anything else. Maybe. But until then, you want to drive your EV? That's fine. But here, do we still have that stupidity in place where they're going to stop selling the EVs in 2030? Yeah, we do, as does California. Now, they're trying to challenge in California at the federal level, and we're following their stupidity. But you know, Washington, Nick Brown will come out and start suing right away. And we already had our friend Steve Gordon from Gordon Trucking on the show a couple weeks ago talking about how now they can't sell RVs, now they can't sell trucks, now they can't sell all this other stuff. So what does that mean? More tax revenue for Idaho. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But if there's one thing Washington is good at, it's doubling down on insanity. So we've had the story about all the pot shops that keep getting broken into, where people use stolen cars as battering rams, or other retail stores that are getting broken into. Now, Cairo 7 had a story where the Seattle Fire Department was broken into using their own vehicle, which was hot-wired to crash through the department in order to break in. Do you think they were going after needles? Do you think they were going after medical equipment? Or do you think it was like what a lot of you text me when we discussed this briefly earlier? Perhaps, and this is a great suggestion that a lot of you sent over through the text line, they were going after the jaws of life, that giant saw that's inside the fire stations. How many stories have we done, Mike, where stolen equipment like that was used for other robberies to break into buildings? And I think that's a great suggestion from the text line of what they might have been after, so they can commit more crimes. Now, we know that fire vehicles have been targeted. Last summer, we had a rash of fire vehicles being targeted, not just with bricks coming off overpasses or from pedestrians or police officers and firefighters being assaulted. Now they want police protection when they go to a fire, but also some fires that may have been intentionally set so that the fire department would show up, get off their truck, and they caught at least 2 people trying to steal fire trucks on 2 different occasions. That's what's going on here. So now it's not just pot shops and retail stores that have to worry. Now the fire department has to worry as well, whether or not they're going to come in the morning and somebody tried to break into their location. My mind immediately went to the needles. Why? Because my old office in Georgetown used to be right near Bloodworks office, and they had to hire security because of the amount of people that tried to break in and steal needles and medical supplies. I assume that's what they're going after. But I think the KVI Nation, Ari's Army, the Big Mike Militia, I think you guys have it right. I think they were probably after the jaws of life. If they're after the jaws of life, they can break into more locations. When we come back, my friends, Governor Jay Inslee is the gift that keeps on giving. Actually, I wouldn't call him a gift. I'd call him a Greek tragedy. I'll tell you about the latest screw-up of somebody whose sentence he commuted when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show, my friends. Now, our Golden Age of America contest is over for today, but fear not, my friends. Your next chance to win during that contest is coming up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning with John Carlson. And don't forget, you get another chance at 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. If you want to try winning again today, we have our Good News giveaway coming up at 5:45. Your chance to win Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus tickets to the Washington State Fair, and so much more. That's right. Golden Age of America, right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
This will be America's new golden age. 100 years from now, the presidential election of 2024 will be looked upon as America's greatest victory. I hope that's true.
By the way, if you want to see my golden skin tone that I had from my perm costume when I dressed up as our commander-in-chief. Yes, I saw the discussion over on the Facebook page about why does Ari not have facial hair? Grow it back quick. Yes, I'm in agreement with you. It is coming back. It's just taking its own sweet time here. But yes, I dressed up as Donald Trump for a Jewish Halloween, otherwise known as Purim, and the pictures are something, shall we just say that? The pictures are something. Though my favorite moment, I found out, my niece rolled off. She bumped her head, and I picked her up and scooped her up. And apparently she told her mom later that night she didn't recognize it was me. That was even funnier. Some other people didn't either. Switching gears, on Friday, we got this story as we were wrapping up the show. It was broken by our friends over at the Linwood Times, who were the first to report on it, and we've gotten more details since then. One of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County, was arrested last week on almost a dozen charges of drug and weapons after being granted clemency by former Washington Governor Jay Inslee in 2019. According to the Linwood Times, Percy Levy, 54, was arrested during a traffic stop by the Snohomish Regional Drug Task Force after a 16-month investigation. Hang on, let me do some math here. Released in 2019, and then 16 months, so now we're at 2024, 2023. Well, that's pretty quick work to get into the business, because to get a task force going after you takes some time. So, yeah, sounds like as soon as he was granted clemency, he was right back at it. After a warrant was served at the suspect's home, officers found 2,818 grams of powder cocaine, 14.7 grams of rock cocaine, and 556 grams of fentanyl, enough to kill approximately 278,000 people, 1/3 of the population of Snohomish County. Packaging material on a digital scale were also found, likely indicating distribution. A handgun was also located at the house. Wait, he's a convicted felon. How'd he get his hands on a handgun? He was charged with 11 Class B felony charges, including 2 counts of unlawful possession of a firearm, possession of a stolen firearm, 8 separate counts of possession of controlled substances with attempt to sell. Each charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, up to $20,000 in fines. He is being held on $1.5 million bond. In 2019, Inslee granted Levy clemency, who had a criminal history dating back to when he was 13 years old. He spent 17 years in prison after a 2002 arrest for a drug house robbery, and Inslee granted him clemency. Why did this guy deserve clemency? Oh, right. Because you wanted him to be an example towards how we should roll back efforts to sentence people, how we should roll back prosecution. This guy became the poster child for criminal justice reform for people like Tara Simmons in the Washington State Legislature. Doesn't sound like it worked out too well for him. Levy claimed to have dedicated himself to criminal justice, worked as a community outreach specialist for the Washington Defender Association, founded Redemption Auto, a car dealership in Everett. He also was treasurer of the board of Black Lives Matter, Seattle King County chapter. Bravo to everybody. Really, just bravo. This is the guy who gets the free pass. This is the guy who gets released. Oh, give me a break. This is absolute insanity. Meanwhile, speaking about reform centers, Seattle public schools are under fire again. Como News has a story for us.
In tonight's Crisis in the Classroom report, Seattle Public Schools parents are claiming the district is adding to its own budget crisis by mismanaging enrollment. Some students have been waitlisted to get into option schools, even though there is enough capacity. Couples Jackie Kent live tonight at SPS headquarters, where families are speaking out at a school board meeting. Jackie?
Well, And Preston, frustrated parents say it's unfair and even discriminatory. They are urging the district to let students enroll in schools they want to go to as a way to help keep more people in the district for years to come and ultimately lead to more state funding for SPS. Seattle Public Schools parent Erin Combs says she was intentional about putting her second-grade daughter into Thornton Creek Elementary. It's an option school that has a learning by doing philosophy.
It was the right fit for my daughter. It was where we wanted her to be.
She and other families are pleading with the district board. Jessica Wass is another Thornton Creek parent who believes everyone should have the chance to opt into alternative programs like this one, or others like dual language immersion, a K-8, or STEM education.
Our enrollment projection just keeps going down and down, and we see the wait list keeps growing and growing. So that tells me that there are families that want to come in, they're not being allowed in. Why is the question.
As a result, we had to cut teachers. Teachers were shuffled around. But the issue is that there were 80 families that were left on the wait list and just not enrolled.
Combs says that reported wait list is infuriating, especially after parents spent the last year hearing SPS talk about potential school closures due in part to low enrollment. Others waiting to speak to the district board tell us the impacts are felt at their STEM campus, Cleveland High School.
And in a way, it's discriminating. The school is in South Seattle. 80% of the students are of color, and it's just not fair. The school gets funds.
In response, SPS in an emailed statement writes the enrollment planning team manages and adjusts wait lists across all schools, including option schools, ensuring they remain as balanced as possible. Each school was filled according to their allocated staffing levels. These parents are demanding more transparency about that process.
I understand that there are hard choices to be made, but I don't understand. It feels like the district is shooting itself in the foot.
SPS goes on to say that since the pandemic, under-enrollment remains a big problem at many schools across the district. It's why their enrollment planning department makes what they call strategic waitlist moves to help stabilize enrollment. We've posted their entire statement at ComeOnNews.com. For now, live in Seattle, Jackie Kent, Come On News.
So what you're saying is when parents are given a choice in where their kids go to school, they choose not to be in the Seattle Public School District. No wonder they're fudging this over at Seattle Public Schools, because if they lose any more kids, they're going to lose more federal funding. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway and our good news headlines, got a funny story for you. So earlier in the show, we did our review of the movie Novocaine. Now, half the experience is going to a movie, but the other half of the experience is going to a movie with Mike and Mr. KVI. I should tell you that when Mike and Mr. KVI are together, it's like going to school with two teenagers that are just giggling and doing whatever. Now, normally, Mike is part of the attraction of a movie, but this was a rowdy crowd, and Mike's shenanigans were not seen throughout the rest of the theater with the same gusto, energy as they usually are.
Yeah.
Is that a way to put it?
That's fair to say.
Okay.
A far cry from our screening of Warfare the other night, but we'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
Okay, so what happens here is that Mike and Mr. KVI are having a wonderful time getting ready for this movie.
Yeah.
Right? And this movie theater, we shall not name the theater. It's not the people's fault where this theater is located. But I walk into this theater and shall we just say it tends to do more international screenings, okay? So I walk in and immediately I see the pro-Gaza movie show, and I'm like, where the hell am I? What is this place? I've never been here
the
before.
Academy Award-winning Gaza movie.
Ah, yes, the Academy Award-winning Gaza movie that hates Jews. So I see that, I'm like, what the hell is this?
That one.
Okay, whatever. I'll let it go. I'm not going to storm out in a huff. I came to see Novocaine. I'm very excited to see Novocaine. We go into the theater, and from there, shenanigans continue. Because there's people who are like shuffling their way down the aisle with food they brought in, glass bottles they brought in. I mean, this is an interesting crowd you have here at this theater, right, Mike?
Yeah. It's a different theater than we usually go to. It was a different theater here in downtown Seattle, and basically it was wild, Ari. Like you don't realize you have a different eclectic crowd until you go to sit down and you're comfortable, and I get my candy out, get my red vines out, and then, it's, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes before showtime, maybe more, but no more than that. And this lady comes across, and she's like, I hear these clanking bottles, and let's say that this nice lady was a person of carriage. Of size, and so kind of like trying to squeeze through. I should also say these seats are very narrow. I sat down and I'm like, oh, that's narrow, because being a person of carriage myself, I've earned my nickname for sure. But nice lady sat, very polite, very sweet. Nothing wrong with the lady, but she leans over and says, "Would you like an orange Fanta?" For the trouble. And I'm like, no, thank you. And I gestured to the fizzy lifting drink that I had gotten. One benefit of this theater, they do have beer and wine.
They do.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I got myself a fizzy lifting drink, and I gestured to that, and she's like, oh, you got yourself a fun drink. I'm like, yes, ma'am. I'm like, but thank you for the offer. I appreciate it. All fine and good. But then halfway through the movie, she has a companion that joins her, and then rustles around in this seemingly endless plastic bag, like a real bag of holding thing, pulls out an entire teriyaki meal. And you know the kind I'm talking about, with the styrofoam, to the point where like this thing is sweating when you open it. You have like the condensation running down the side of the thing, and they're just sitting there like Lady and Tramping this thing. Like they're just like got like two forks, too furious, just like really going to town on this teriyaki meal. It's been a while since I've been in a theater where they've like allowed outside food, or like, turn a blind eye. But like, I don't know, we on the Ari Hoffman Show have a mixed relationship with advocating for theatrical exhibition and going to the movie theater, especially like in the downtown metro area. But the experience that I had the other night, actual animals. Like, who comes to the movie after the movie has started? Like, we had gotten there like a half hour early and got settled in and time to, know what the vibe is. But like, movie is starting.
Yes.
And like, there's people shuffling in, pushing through, trying to find all the empty seats. It was a packed showing, so there was like people everywhere, and I was getting a little upset.
Well, where Mike really lost it.
Oh.
And this is the best part.
I didn't know if we were going to tell
Oh,
the story.
no, we're going
or
to
not.
tell this story. Normally, Mike is like yelling at the screen, okay? Going with Mike to a movie is an adventure. But what happens is some dude in the back of the theater starts taking a full-on phone conversation towards the end of the movie. Just full-on having a conversation in the back of the theater. And a lady who's next to me on the other side gets her walker, gets up and scoots her way over to Mike on her walker with wheels and probably tennis balls that I couldn't see because it was dark in the theater. And she leans over and starts yelling at Mike about talking. Now, the funniest thing, this is the first time I can remember that it wasn't Mike who was talking.
Yes.
But you can still hear the other dude on his phone at the other side of the theater. And Mike's like, dude, it ain't me. And I think she disappeared to go yell at this guy.
Well, because her life flashed before her eyes.
Because Mike was about to end it.
This nice lady had no idea how close to the end that she came. Just be polite and courteous when you
Yes.
go to the movies.
Yes.
There's a special place in hell for people who talk in the theater, or at least are aggressively disruptive.
Well, the best part about this is you had shushed the dude, and she came over to yell at you for shushing the dude in the back, which is even more entertaining.
Yeah, meanwhile, the dude's like, oh, yeah, I'm watching Novocaine. Oh, yeah, sure, it's pretty good. And the movie is over.
Yes.
Like the movie has, like, the climax has happened. This is like the wrap-up of it. And it's like very, tender moments between our characters. And I'm just like, dude.
Right. We enjoyed
I
this.
was
You're
so
ruining our
mad.
good time.
So mad.
Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Also, a copy of 7 Steps to Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrono Financial and CPAs. And 6 tickets to the Washington State Spring Fair. Get your tickets now at thefair.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10. Win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement, and 6 tickets to the Washington State Spring Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let's go do it for us today, my friends. Fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.